Hey students, you'll have noticed some redundancies in some of the tasks I've assigned to you, and I wanted to show why they're useful in spite of them seeming redundant. So in this case, for instance, you have Evans has the word cookies, and then I have asked him to also have the same forms presented in this way in a block separated by a soft line break. And this is useful. This is the first example of redundancy. And this one is useful because it allows us to recycle blocks like these and other things. So if somebody's baking cookies or somebody gave cookies to somebody, we'll be able to recycle that particular block. And in the meantime, we can analyze this one, do a bit of derivational morphology. So again, I prefer to have this inside a table usually. And so cookies appears to be some sort of compound, and we can look up for the first part. It's what does that mean? Okay, that word means bannock. So what I'm doing now is I've recycled bannock from somewhere else. And lecken next. Okay. Lecken. Yeah. So I'm going through. See, it has a few different meanings. It tastes sweet. It is sweet. Cake. I suspect that this is the form that's being used in that case. So what this means is the word for cookies is derived from bannock cake. And there's an example of derivational morphology, but let's go to that example of sweet. It's right here, yeah. So this is where we got cake from. And again, there's a lot of redundancy here because you see the word cake, and I've just explained why we're repeating it in this way so we can recycle it in our analyses. But you see it's repeated here as it is sweet, and it's repeated here as it tastes sweet. And this is because the word cake derives from the verb form, well, the utterance, it is sweet. And so the Dene word for cake is this word, but that word also means it is sweet. You really need both because they're two separate things. So when you have the word cake being used derivationally in the word for cookies, or in a sentence like, see the sentence at the bottom there, he is mixing a cake. Cake is being used as that noun, not as the sentence, it is sweet. So we can just leave cake as like this, but if you wanted, you can do a morphological analysis of it underneath. This is one that I would like to analyze. It is sweet. So what we've been finding is that the stems in Dene often seem to have a root that has a CVC shape at the right edge. And then there tends to be some sort of prefix at the beginning, but it also seems to be part of the root because you can't always predict what that will be. So I would describe sweet as this discontinuous stem, and so the way we've been analyzing that is sweet, but then this is sometimes called a thematic prefix, which is a lexical prefix that goes with sweet. So we've been glossing it like this. Another thing you can do, oddly enough, is repeat it this way, repeat it twice, because both of those are part of the stem sweet, the discontinuous stem sweet. But I'm going to write it as a thematic prefix because it's fun to keep track of all the different thematic prefixes we've been getting. And we've also been keeping track of our prefixes, so we want to create a page for those two. Okay. Now, the reason why we're breaking it up this way is because we've also been learning that these discontinuous stems, when they get conjugated or inflected in different persons, you get the person markers show up in the middle there. And so, for instance, if I say, I'm sweet, I bet you anything that it's this. Okay, which in that case, it's the imperfective first person singular subject right there. Okay, because we've been finding that the first person prefix is often this thing here. So that would mean I am sweet. Because of this, we're going to assume that this is not only a discontinuous stem, but that it's broken up with something we're writing as a zero prefix. And that is not the first person, but the third person singular, because it is sweet. Okay. We're going to assume that this zero prefix is not technically a zero prefix. What that means is that there's an identity operation when you inflect this verb for the third person singular in the imperfective. The root just remains unchanged. It's not modified by a prefix such as s in the case of the first person singular, okay, or ne in the case of the second person singular, and so on. Okay, so this sentence has been analyzed, and it means that we can recycle it too. But in the meantime, we've filled in more yet another example for thematic page for the zero prefix, for the imperfective third person subject, and so on, for creating separate pages for them. Anyhow, coming to the third redundancy, let's say, it is sweet versus it tastes sweet. Well, the meaning kleken can mean it tastes sweet, and that's informative and interesting, and we need to know that, because if there's a form such as I'm sweet, hleskan, then that form cannot mean the same thing as I taste sweet. And in fact, what you'd want to do is ask Florence if you try to say hleskan, does it mean I'm sweet? And then can it also mean I taste sweet, which is odd. And if she says no, then it means that the form for it is sweet has taken on, it's kind of a real world pragmatic idea that if something it is sweet, then it tastes sweet. But as you know, when I say I am sweet, I might not be saying I'm literally sweet. It's in that case, it's figurative language. And so these really do need to be listed separately in our database. And this is why we have all this redundancy, in case you're wondering. And that's all.